fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to row-wide facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to the Bullvine Podcast, where we cut through dairy industry noise to get you the insights that actually matter for your operation.
And today, we're diving deep into a feature piece that's got some serious buzz. This one's got layers that'll make every farmer really rethink their approach to color genetics and the dominant red Holstein.
It really will, because, let's be honest, we all lived by a very simple rule, the rule we learned in high school biology. Red times red equals red. It's Mendelian genetics 101.
It was simple. It was reliable.
Exactly. And that old comfortable rule, it's officially broken. The discovery of the COPA gene back in 2015 introduced a genetic override switch. That is, well, it's fundamentally rewriting how color is transmitted in Holsteins.
And this isn't some abstract theory in a lab. This is actively happening right now in high-value breeding programs, and it's leading to some major losses.
The stakes here are just astronomical, and this is why we're hitting it so hard today. This isn't a discussion about whether a show calf is, pretty.
Not at all.
We are talking about registration errors that compound over generations, angry buyers who feel completely misled, and ruined reputations that take decades to build.
Right. If you're selling high-end embryos or donor cows or heifers based on the promise of red genetics, and those animals suddenly throw black calves after you've mated them to other red animals,
you're losing serious money.
We're talking tens of thousands of dollars lost on a single flush.
And the core controversy here, this is the biggest shocker. A variant red bull, a bull that looks perfectly red, can throw 50% black calves.
Even when bred to a traditional recessive red cow.
A red sire, a red dam, and a black calf. We are going to unpack the exact molecular mechanism behind that financial trap today. And we're going to explain why spending $30 on a specific genetic test is currently the cheapest and, frankly, the most necessary insurance policy you can buy in your operation right now. So let's start by just presenting the core issue. It's this red times red equals black scenario, and it is absolutely burning seed stock breeders who haven't caught up with this research on the COPA switch.
We see this playing out every day on the farm, especially in operations that are really focused on marketing the red and white color.
So walk us through it. A breeder sources what they think is a high-quality red bull.
Right. They know he's a variant red, which means he carries this COPA gene, we call him DRN, meaning he has one copy of the dominant red variant and one normal one.
Okay.
And they breed him to their proven recessive red cows, which are, the standard E at the traditional color locus.
So the expectation, based on 3 generations of historical Holstein knowledge, is 100% red calves. Why wouldn't it be?
Of course. Both parents look red, they're fully registered as red and white, and the dam has probably always produced red calves.
But the reality is,
they're getting exactly 50% black calves instead.
50%?
It's a coin flip for color, and that's a coin flip you just can't afford to lose if you are marketing color. That's where the disaster starts.
And that's not an exaggeration. A disaster.
No. If I, the farmer, sell a calf to a customer who paid a premium, say, $5,000 for guaranteed red genetics, and 6 months later it turns black, or it's born black, or worse, I sell an embryo guaranteeing red and the resulting calf is black, my word is worthless.
It's all about trust.
In the seed stock business, that trust and that reputation damage, you can't quantify it, but it's very real, and it takes years, if ever, to recover. It doesn't matter how high the bull's genomic numbers were if the fundamental promise of the phenotype is broken.
Okay, so let's strip away the jargon and explain the mechanics simply, because this is where the money is lost. The COPA gene is the override.
Right.
An animal can be genetically programmed for black at the MC1R locus, that's the traditional color switch on chromosome 18, but if it carries the COPA variant, that dominant red gene overrides the black signal and the animal expresses red.
So it looks red. We call it variant red, or DR.
So the bull looks red because the COPA switch is set to red override. But here's the trap. The bull is hiding dominant black genetics, the itWhere allele, underneath.
And he's almost certainly eat that MC1R locus, just like 99% of the black Holstein population. The COPA gene is just masking it.
Precisely. The sire is a black bull in red clothing, courtesy of the COPA gene. The surprise black calves happen when the bull, who is heterozygous DRN at that COPA locus,
He passes the N normal allele.
Yeah.
He fails to pass on the override switch.
Okay, let's walk through the genetics of that specific calf. The dam is recessive red, so she only has the E allele to give at MC1R.
Right. The calf gets that E, no question.
The sire is carrying the dominant black allele, EDLRE, and if he's homozygous, he's passing it 100% of the time.
And crucially, for the COPA gene, the calf gets the normal N allele from that sire.
That's the exact recipe for disaster. That calf has no COPA override because the sire didn't pass it on.
And now, the hidden dominant black gene, EELAO, is free to express itself against the single recessive red copy, the E the dam provided.
And since E dominates E,
Boom! The calf is phenotypically black, a black calf from two parents that look completely red.
and the breeder is left there scratching their head thinking the recessive red cow suddenly mutated, or that the AI straw was mislabeled.
Yeah, they blame the AI company, they blame the vet, they blame everything but the real cause.
And the problem was a lack of knowledge about this COPA interaction. It's pure chaos built on a simple misunderstanding of these two color systems working in opposition.
It's brutal. If you sell 10 embryos at $500 a piece and half of them come back black, you're refunding $2,500 instantly.
And that's not even mentioning the future business you just lost. The math is just brutal when you miss that $30 test. To really appreciate how revolutionary this COPA discovery is and why it changes our breeding programs, we have to rewind a bit and challenge the old paradigm.
Right. For generations, we've focused exclusively on one thing, the MC1R gene, the extension locus on chromosome 18.
And that gene determined whether the cow was making black pigment, eumelanin, or red pigment, pheomelanin. That was the key switch, period.
That was the baseline. And it was a beautifully simple model for most of the breed's history. If you had dominant black, EDO, you were black. End of story.
And if you wanted red, you needed 2 copies of recessive red, the E genotype.
Anything else was either considered impossible or it was such a rarity that breeders just ignored it.
Let's quickly review those MC1R alleles because differentiating them is so crucial for understanding how this COPA override works.
Okay, so the standard is EDIDO, dominant black. Over 99% of Holsteins carry this. It means the receptor is basically locked on, constantly signaling for black pigment production.
Then you have recessive red, the E allele, and you need 2 copies.
$. Right, and that's a severe frame shift mutation that basically renders the MC1R receptor completely non-functional.
So since the receptor can't receive that go black signal, the cell just defaults to producing red pigment. It's a complete silence of the black signal.
It's off, permanently.
But then we have to talk about the Telstar gene. This caused massive confusion back in the day too, and it's so important we don't confuse it with variant red.
Oh, the classic disappearing red.
Exactly. Calves carrying EBA, so progeny of bulls, like Roybrook Telstar, they're born red, and you cannot tell them apart from a true recessive red calf at birth.
They look identical, but between 3 and 6 months of age, their coats just progressively darken. You see mottled black hairs start appearing.
And eventually the animal switches fully to black.
And that switch, it happens because of an MC1R timing mechanism. It's developmental.
It is not related to the COPA transport system at all. This is the critical differentiation.
Right. EBR is an MC1R allele that regulates when the pigment switch happens. The ability to make black pigment is there, but the switch is just delayed.
And we have to differentiate this visually and genetically from the COPA effect. If you skip testing, you could easily confuse a Telstar carrying calf with a variant red one at birth.
They look the same.
But they have completely different inheritance patterns and totally different final phenotypes. Telstar animals always turn black. Variant red animals stay red, though we'll get into how they might darken a bit later.
Okay, so that's the old complicated system on chromosome 18.
Right. Now we introduce the COPA override, ARG160Cs, which sits on chromosome 3.
A completely different chromosome.
Nowhere near the traditional color locus, and yet it acts as the master override switch. This is the definition of epistasis.
Yeah.
One gene controlling the expression of another totally independent gene.
So let's use that farmer English analogy again, but go a little deeper into the biology because this mechanism is pretty fascinating.
Let's do it. Think of the melanocyte, the pigment cell, as A tiny specialized factory.
Okay.
For that factory to start making black pigment, the eumelanin, it needs two things. One, it needs the MC1R receptor sitting on the outside of the cell ready to get that go black signal.
And two.
Two, it needs the specialized enzymes like tyrosinase or TYR to be transported from the nucleus into the production line, which is called the melanosome.
So the MC1R signal is the general manager shouting, start making black paint. Because the animal has the dominant black genetics, the E429.
And the COPA gene specifically, the protein complex it codes for, which is COPI, is essentially the internal delivery truck service inside that cell.
The delivery truck. I like that.
The COPI complex is responsible for transporting lots of proteins, including these key enzymes and the MC1R receptor itself, to the cell surface or the production site. The specific mutation in variant red animals is a defect that subtly disrupts this delivery truck service.
So it sounds like a really fundamental problem. I mean, shouldn't that just kill the cell if its delivery trucks are broken?
That's the incredible biological nuance here. The mutation is severe enough to cripple the delivery of the pigment-critical machinery.
The paint and the paint-making machines.
Exactly. But it's mild enough that it doesn't disrupt the general, housekeeping functions of the cell. The cell survives just fine.
So melanocytes, these specialized pigment cells, they're just uniquely sensitive to this slight disruption in the COPI function.
They need those delivery trucks to be running perfectly to execute the black signal.
So the general manager, MC1R, might be screaming, make black paint, because the animal carries $8.
But the COPA gene has crippled the delivery truck service. The required machinery just doesn't reach the production line.
The analogy holds up perfectly. The COPA gene blocks the delivery of the receptor to the cell membrane, or it blocks the enzymes needed for this synthesis.
And without that working black machinery in place, the cell defaults to its ground state, which is producing pheomelanin, or red pigment.
So the animal is genetically signaling for black, but the COPA gene blocks the execution. That's the genetic override, sitting on a completely different chromosome.
And this entire paradigm-shifting discovery, which now costs or saves breeders thousands of dollars, it all stemmed from the impossible history of one cow.
Suriname Sheik Rosabelle Red, born way back in 1980. We have to tell her story.
We do. Rosabelle was the paradox that the old science could not explain. Her sire was confirmed itWhere, homozygous dominant black.
So there was zero chance, under the traditional MC1R model, that Rosabelle should have been anything but black.
Yet she was red. And she stayed red. She was this anomaly that breeders and geneticists argued about for years. Was it a spontaneous mutation? Was the sire misidentified?
The clincher was when she was bred. She consistently produced 50% red progeny, regardless of the black sire that was used.
That 50% transmission pattern, that just screams dominant trait entirely independent of the MC1R locus.
Exactly. If she were recessive red, she could only pass on the E allele, and when you breed that to a dominant black bull, all her progeny should be black.
But 50% were red. This proved the existence of an independent, dominant red trait that was overriding the black signal.
Rosabelle was the foundation of variant red, the real-world proof that this epistatic interaction existed. Her genetics literally forced geneticists to look beyond chromosome 18 and find the COPA mutation on chromosome 3.
It's an incredible piece of detective work that directly impacts the bottom line of every red and white breeder today. Without Rosabelle, we might still be stuck in that red X, red mentality, just losing money blindly.
All right, let's bring this discussion back down to earth and attach some serious dollar signs to it. We're talking genetics, transport proteins. The farmer driving the tractor is asking, why should I spend $30 on yet another test?
Because that $30 test is your cheapest, fastest, most effective form of insurance against thousands, potentially tens of thousands, in losses or major reputational harm.
The cost of the error here is just so disproportionately high compared to the cost of getting the information.
The test, again, is a comprehensive color genotype. It costs around $30 through major labs like UC Davis VGL. And crucially, it has to check both COPA status, the variant red status, and MC1R status, the extension locus.
And if you're using Holstein USA's standard genomic panels, this data is integrated, but you have to know how to read it.
Okay, let's quantify the financial risk. Let's look at 4 real-world scenarios where skipping that $30 test results in a financial catastrophe.
Scenario 1, the Telstar trap. You operate a seed stock business. You sell a beautiful, high genomic red heifer for $5,000, marketing her as premium, true red breeding stock.
You skipped the $30 test because she looked red.
Of course. 6 months later, she turns black because she was carrying itWhere, the Telstar gen. The customer contacts you, furious, demanding a full refund.
That is a $5,000 refund, plus the loss of that customer for life and every breeder they talk to.
The heifer still has value for milk, sure, but her value as a red breeding animal, which is what the customer paid for, it drops to near zero. Reputational damage among show circles and red and white breeders is instantaneous.
You risk several $1,000s to save 30, it just doesn't pencil out.
Never. Okay, scenario 2, the registration error. This one compounds the damage across the entire breed.
You have a variant red calf, a DRN, looking identical to a recessive red calf, EI2. You register it as recessive red because, the sire was listed as red factor and the dam is red.
Right. Now that false pedigree data is locked in the system, future buyers, maybe 5 years down the line, use that cow's genetics, assuming she's a clean recessive red line.
And their breeding math is constantly wrong.
You're not just messing up your own farm, you're messing up everyone downstream who relies on the accuracy of that pedigree.
And if a buyer invests, say, $10,000 in a contract for daughters from that line, and the resulting calves fail to deliver the expected color,
that registration error is costing you potentially massive liability and, again, huge reputational recovery cost.
Scenario 3, the donor disaster. This is where the losses get truly massive.
Oh, yeah. Imagine you have an elite black cow with high genomics, a cow you want to convert into red genetics using a variant Red Bull. You decide to flush her.
You're spending, $4,000 to $6,000 on cinch, hormones, vet fees, recipient cow management.
All planning to sell the resulting embryos for maybe $500 to $1,000 each, based on a 50% red guarantee.
But if you made a false assumption about the donor cow's hidden MC1R status, or if your VRC bull wasn't fully tested, those resulting embryos might not deliver that promised red-black ratio.
So you commit thousands to the flush, and then you have to refund pre-buyers. Or worse, the resulting calves are just unsaleable because of a phenotype-genotype mismatch.
We're talking easily 5 figures lost, the cost of the flush, the lost revenue on the embryos, the time spent waiting, all because a $30 test was skipped on the sire or the dam.
And the final one? Scenario 4. The cleanup bull chaos. This is the simplest financial trap.
You turn out a heterozygous variant, Red Bull DRN, and EBL for summer cleanup breeding in a mixed color group. He's cheap, he's healthy, he gets the job done.
The calves are born, some red, some black, some a little mottled. Now you've got 2 problems.
1, you have no idea which of those red calves are recessive red and which are variant red.
And 2, because you mixed colors, you can't track the pedigree easily. So you need to select replacements intelligently for the next generation, but you can't tell the difference just by looking at them.
So what do you have to do?
Now you are forced into genomic testing the entire calf crop, not just the keepers, just to sort out the replacements and understand their genetic value.
At $30 to $40 per head for the full color panel, across dozens or hundreds of animals.
You've just spent thousands to clean up the mess caused by skipping the initial $30 test on the bull. The chaos of phenotype ambiguity forces you into expensive testing downstream.
So when you weigh a one-time $30 investment against a $5,000 refund, $10,000 in lost embryo sales, or $3,000 in unnecessary calf testing,
that $30 test is absolutely non-negotiable insurance. If color is affecting your revenue stream, meaning you are selling genetics, not just milk, you cannot afford to guess.
you need to know both, the COPA status and the underlying MC1R status. Let's shift gears and talk about the strategic appeal of variant red. I mean, why would any breeder willingly introduce this level of complexity and risk into their program?
The answer is simple: speed and efficiency.
That's the core appeal, and it's why VRC is here to stay. Traditional recessive red breeding is a generational commitment.
It's so slow. If you breed a heterozygous recessive red cow, itWhere, to a heterozygous bull,
Right.
you only get a 25% chance of a red calf.
It's just hugely inefficient when you're trying to inject color or any associated desirable red line trait into an elite black genomic line.
Variant red lets you do it fast. It's rapid introgression. Breeding a VRC bull to a high-merit homozygous black cow yields 50% red calves in the first generation.
You instantly jumpstart the color inheritance process. It makes the variant red trait a really powerful strategic asset for commercializing high genomic females from the black population.
And this trait was legitimized by specific animals that combined that variant red gene with other elite characteristics, particularly high type in production. We have to talk about the matriarchs that dragged VRC into the mainstream.
We always trace back to Rosabelle, the 1980 founder. But the pivotal modern matriarch was Stoned Fool's Gold Red, born in 2007.
She was sired by the legendary Braidale Goldwyn, and critically, Fool's Gold combined the dominant red gene with show-winning type and high production index numbers.
She was a dominant female who brought VRC into the mainstream genomic era. She made it viable for breeders focused on profitability, not just novelty.
And that line continues right through to modern sires. A great example is Vogue Zircon P. He's a key modern carrier, heterozygous DRN.
But what makes Zircon P so strategically valuable is what we call the double dominant advantage. He also carries the polled trait.
That is a massive breeding tool. You are transmitting two dominant market desirable traits, red and polled, with a 50% success rate for each in a single generation straight into an elite black line.
That's how VRC moves from a genetic curiosity to a strategic money-making asset. It's an instant accelerator for specific traits.
But now, the nuance that gets breeders into trouble. The phenotypic expression. We said VRC animals look red, but we know they can darken. And this is where we have to hammer home the difference between Telstar and the VRC leaky blockade.
Yes, we need to spend time here, because failing to distinguish these two mechanisms is what leads to those registration mistakes. Variant red expression isn't always uniform and stable, like the absolute non-functional silence of a recessive red animal.
The underlying biology is completely different. Recessive red is a broken receptor. It simply cannot make black pigment.
But variant red is a disrupted delivery truck. That COPA defect that just slows down the production of black pigment.
And blockages, especially biological ones, are inherently leaky.
Research confirms this. The inhibition of those black pigment enzymes, TYR and TYRP1, in VRC animals is less complete than it is in E-recessive red animals. The cell is still trying to make black pigment.
And sometimes some of that machinery gets through, especially as the animal matures and hormonal balances shift.
This explains the famous Tech Venturo calico red case. He was born red, but he darkened significantly, eventually turning mostly black later in life.
And breeders sometimes mistakenly assumed he was a Telstar carrier because he darkened.
But that darkening is due to the inherent leakiness of that COPA blockade over time, and it's potentially influenced by testosterone, which is why darkening is often more pronounced in bulls.
The melanocytes manage to synthesize enough eumelin to cause intermixed black hairs, or a darkening of the extremities. They're just overcoming that transport blockage slowly.
It is absolutely crucial that breeders understand this distinction. This VRC darkening is not the Telstar mechanism, the EB gene.
Right. Telstar animals darken because their MC1R gene is specifically programmed to switch on black pigment production later in life.
Calico red still transmits the dominant red gene, VRC. He is darkening because his COPA mutation is an imperfect block against the ED gene he carries.
Two different genetic processes. Similar visual outcome of blackening, but completely different inheritance patterns and breeding values.
And only testing tells the difference between the red calf that will turn entirely black, that's Telstar, and the red calf that will stay mostly red but might darken at the extremities, which is VRC.
Okay, let's synthesize this into a practical mating outcomes cheat sheet. If a farmer is using VRC, what is the safest path and what is the highest risk they absolutely have to avoid?
The cleanest, safest path to guaranteed red outcomes, if you prioritize color consistency, is to use a homozygous variant red sire, a DRDR bull.
These bulls are rare. We mentioned Vogue Red IP as an example. But because they have two copies of the override switch, they yield 100% red offspring, even on your homozygous black cows.
The override is guaranteed every single time. This eliminates that 50% risk.
And the high-risk, high-reward strategy, that's for the much more common heterozygous variant red sire, the DRN, the Zircon Ps of the world.
You have to be surgical in their use. Use them aggressively on your elite black dams, which are $80 at MC1R.
That's the strategic move. You instantly inject red color into that pedigree with a 50% hit rate, and you accelerate your breeding plan.
And critically, do not, under any circumstances, use them on your recessive red dams, your ECOT cows.
That is the precise mating we identified at the very beginning that introduces the 50% black calf risk, because you risked removing the COPA override by passing the N allele.
And exposing the bull's hidden dominant black gene, $80. If you are using a variant red bull, you must know his underlying MC1R status. Is he EDed? If so, the risk is 50% on your red cows.
It's all about risk management. If you need guaranteed red, use DRDR or Clean E genetics. If you're leveraging the speed of ERC, only mate those DRN bulls to black cows.
It's a simple rule, but with massive implications. The industry is clearly reacting to this newfound complexity. The elite tier of genetics is already moving toward mandatory COPA and MC1R testing at registration.
It's no longer optional. It's an inevitability driven by the demand for transparency and accurate pedigree data.
Exactly. Competitive pressure demands this clarity. When major AI studs like Select Sires publish specific codes DR1, DR2, and detailed mating guidance, they set the standard.
And breeders spending premium dollars on embryos or semen demand to know exactly what they are buying. If one supplier provides total genetic transparency and the next one doesn't, the market will always choose transparency.
But here is where the complexity gets international and where breeders importing or exporting genetics can get burned.
Ah, yes. We need to decode those standards because the names change depending on which country you're dealing with. It's the same genetics, just different shorthand.
And this can lead to massive, expensive errors in pedigree analysis.
So in the U.S., the Holstein Association and CDCB use DR0 for tested free, DR1 for a heterozygous carrier, and DR2 for homozygous dominant red.
DR0, DR1, DR2, got it. But if you are looking at Canadian genetics,
Holstein Canada uses VRF for free, VRC for a carrier, and VRS for homozygous.
VRF, VRC, VRF.
Think about a breeder in the U.S. purchasing semen from a high genomic Canadian bull. The bull is listed as VRC. If that U.S. buyer mistakenly assumes VRC means variant red clean, or somehow confuses it with EJ genetics,
they are introducing a massive risk into their program. A VRC bull in Canada is the same as a DR1 bull in the U.S., a heterozygous carrier with that 50% black risk when bred to a recessive red dam.
you absolutely must know which country's code you are reading to prevent catastrophic breeding mistakes.
Yeah.
It requires a dedicated checklist at the time of purchase.
And this is just one example of the increasing complexity that breeders have to manage. It's not just about color, it's about the fact that one mutation on chromosome 3 completely overrides the effect of a gene on chromosome 18.
This kind of network thinking is the future of genomics across all traits.
However, we have to take a moment to acknowledge the holdouts, and their rationale is perfectly sound. We can't just preach mandatory testing to everyone.
Absolutely not. For a large commercial 500-cow dairy that ships bull calves at a week old and selects replacements purely on efficiency, milk production, and health traits like feed saved.
Color genetics are completely irrelevant to their income statement.
Right. Mandatory testing across all registrations is just unnecessary friction, cost, and complexity for those operations. Their rational business decision is to prioritize traits that generate revenue, which is milk, and reduce cost, which is health and feed efficiency.
They are maximizing profit by ignoring color. We have to respect that. The $30 test is irrelevant to them when they are looking at a $100 gain in health dollars per animal per year.
This deep dive is primarily focused on operations that monetize genetics and phenotype.
Which brings us to the ultimate verdict for anyone marketing genetics. Phenotype alone is now useless in the Holstein breed.
Wait, that's a heavy statement. Unpack that again for the farmer driving down the road.
Phenotype alone is useless for predicting genetic outcome. A red calf at birth can be 3 fundamentally different things, and you cannot tell the difference just by looking at it.
Okay, number 1.
1, it could be variant red, VRC, or DR1. It carries hidden dominant black, EDD2, and the dominant override gene.
Number 2.
2, it could be recessive red, EB2 exit. It is clean and transmits true red.
And number 3.
3, it could be Telstar, EE2. It will turn black in 6 months and may carry the ED gene.
They all look red at day 1. But only testing confirms which one, and that distinction dictates the animal's future breeding value, its marketability, and its potential to wreck your mating program.
If it's Telstar, it turns black buyer beware. If it's
Right.
VRC, it hides black genetics breeder beware. If it's recessive red, it's clean. That's the gold standard.
It's the ultimate lesson in modern genomics.
Okay.
You cannot manage what you can't measure. The COPA discovery didn't complicate colored genetics. It just revealed the complexity that had always been hidden beneath the surface.
It was always there. We just didn't have the tools to see these epistatic interactions before 2015. The breeders who adapt their programs now, moving away from simple one-gene thinking toward network analysis, are the ones who will avoid those expensive surprises and, critically, leverage the speed of the variant red trait strategically. All right. A farmer just finished milking, pulled out their phone, and is driving to the feed store. What are the 3 things they need to remember and act on from today's discussion about the COPA switch?
We need 3 actionable steps based on clear timelines, focused entirely on protecting their
So
investment.
what's number 1? Immediate action this week.
Immediate action. Test your red sires. If you own, lease, or use any variant red bulls or any red factor bulls that trace back to the Roosevelt or Fool's Gold lines, get their full color panel, COPA, and MC1R now. This is your $30 insurance policy.
And the reasoning.
You need to understand the hidden dominant black genetics, the E-dillers they are carrying. If that sire is DRN in E-dillers, you know immediately that the 50% black calf risk exists when you mate him to any recessive red cow you own. If you skip this, you are betting thousands on a coin flip.
Okay, what's the medium-term strategy? 3 to 6 months out.
Number 2, rethink your red mating programs and documentation. If guaranteed red calves are your goal, especially for marketing high-value heifers, stop relying on heterozygous variant red, the DRN sires, on your red cows. The financial risk of a failed calf or a refund is just too high.
So what's the alternative?
Switch immediately to using homozygous variant red, DRDR sires for guaranteed results, or use proven, tested recessive red E genetics that are confirmed COPA-free, DR0 or VRF. And start documenting the full COPA and MC1R status on all your replacement heifers and animals you intend to market. Use those breed standard codes clearly. Transparency protects you from liability.
And the long-term positioning, 1 to 2 years down the road.
Number 3, leverage VRC strategically, not casually. Understand the actual strategic value of variant red. Use the trait to convert your highest genomic black females into red bloodlines instantly. Mate your DRN bulls only to high-merit homozygous black cows to quickly produce valuable 50% red daughters in the first generation.
And what should they avoid?
Never, ever use VRC bulls as cleanup bulls on mixed color groups during the summer. The subsequent expense of sorting, testing, and verifying those resulting calves later, the thousands spent on genomic cleanup, will wipe out any perceived breeding benefit. Just stick to a clean heat recessive red bull if you need a specific color cleanup. This has been another deep dive from the Bullvine Podcast. Managing complexity in dairy genetics is the new reality, and the COPA switch is just the first step in understanding how 2 different genetic pathways affect our profitability. For more straight-talking industry analysis, head to www.thebullvine.com.
Absolutely. The epistatic interactions we saw today, one pathway overriding another, they don't just stop at color. These genetic networks show up in fertility, health, and efficiency traits as well. The mental model you build managing variant red is the same sophisticated model you'll need for the next layers of genetic complexity headed for your future breeding program.
It's all connected.
It is. Subscribe wherever you get podcasts. We're out with new episodes every day, and next time's topic will be analyzing how genetic networks like the epistatic interaction we saw today show up in fertility, health, and efficiency traits, and what that means for your future breeding program. We'll see you next time.